I remember back when I was a little boy, growing up in the early '70s, I used to hear about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Then fast forward to 1984, we witnessed another attempt on the life of then President Ronald Reagan. The other day, we witnessed once again in 2024 an attempt on the life of former President Donald Trump. Is this what we do in America? Really? Let's talk about it. Thank you for joining me again on another edition of the Replay, the Cultural Fast News One Mic. I'm your guy, Jabril Rashad, aka Real Deal Jabril, and yes, I am your host. I want to talk about something, but before we do any of that, I want you all to hit that like, subscribe, and share button for me as we continue to try to grow the Fast Track channel as well as the Replay Sports Culture Show with my other co-hosts, Daryl Alexander and Timothy Jackson. But guys, come on now, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Okay? All right, let's get into this thing. Okay, we witnessed something that I was hoping that we would have been so far away from, to the point to where we can agree to disagree. We have our different politics, just like we have our different sports teams. We have our differences, and we should be able to agree to disagree. But some people just cannot seem to get out of their own way. They continue to uh, indict individuals based on their perhaps limited, I'm going to say that word, limited point of views, and sometimes not so limited. Maybe you do have it right. Maybe you do have it correct. Maybe you are on the right side of the equations. But at the same time, whether if anyone elevate or rise to your level or not, you should respect where an individual is at. At least that's what I try to do. I try to live by that code. Everybody may not be where you are, but hopefully one day they will if they continue to seek truth and traffic and information. We don't all grow the same. We grow at different degrees. What I was maybe, 30 years ago, I thank God I'm not that today. And we're all on a journey searching for knowledge and information from the cradle to the grave. So what we witnessed recently was an attempt to kill a man, to murder a man because of some indifference that he may have or some view or some school of thought that does not line up with how you view or see things. You want to take his life out. And I just have a serious problem with that. Now, let me preface something before I go any further, because I may say some things that may rub some people the wrong way, and it may be some insightful information. Either way, I hope that, again, we can agree to disagree, but we can also have a healthy dialogue. But first, let me say that I'm apolitical, okay? Apolitical. And for any of you who don't know what that word means, apolitical means I don't really care who's in the Oval Office because I don't partake in it anyway. I don't. Uh, Now, you may have a different viewpoint on it. You may want to use, the Voting Rights Act and all of the marching and the singing and the parades that was performed back in the 60s. Those brave women and men who fought hard in freedoms and struggles to integrate into a system that never wanted African American people in the first place. All you got to do is go back to the United States Constitution, and it'll tell you that. Uh, I just learned, as I continue to evolve as a young child into a man, is to study to show my own self-worth approval. Yes, to study to show my own works approval. And that's what I did. Because what I've learned along the way This is what I've learned along the way, that if you or myself, as African American people, if we don't identify with the Democratic Party, the Bible or Jesus or God concept, or uh, if you're not always voting Democratic, then you should have your, I guess, your black card revoked, if there is such a thing. Nah, I don't subscribe to that ideology any longer. I've long exited that theology. I do believe if we continue to do the same thing over and over and over again, and we've heard these things many a times, then it's insanity. Why? Because you are expecting a different result. We had, I recall back in the early 90s when former President Bill Clinton was running for president office. And we thought he was so cool. I remember, just like yesterday. Oh, because he went on the, Saturday Night Live and he was blowing a saxophone. Excuse me. Yeah, he played the saxophone. You know, we like to dance. That's one of our stereotypes. African American people love to shake it, love to dance. So he grabbed the saxophone, put on a pair of sunglasses like he was one of the Blues Brothers, and began to blow the saxophone. And we lost our mind. Oh, Bill Clinton, he's so cool. That go brother Bill. Oh, he's the closest thing to a brother. Oh, he puffed a little weefer. Yeah, we lost our mind with that. Then fast forward, we had the real deal, at least half of it anyway. 8 years of Barack Obama. 8 years of Barack Obama. So my question is simple. It's a simple question. How much have changed if you subscribe to the narrative on the left? And how much has changed if you subscribe to the narrative on the right? Because what you have on both sides of the aisle, in my purview, is that you have mud slinging from left to right and from right to left. But are you benefiting from it? That's the question. Are we, as the African American community, are we truly benefiting from all of the written laws by Congress, all of the freedom rides, are we really truly benefiting? Not according to economics. I read something recently, well, not too long ago, where it says after the Civil War, that African Americans had only about 0.5% of wealth in the United States. Fast forward, the number haven't even went up that much. They say we have about 1% of wealth that comes in our community. Well, they say that if we were a country alone, we would rank 13th on the list. Yeah, 13th on the list against other countries like Venezuela, like Mexico, like Nigeria. We would rank 13th on the list because they say $1.3 trillion annually flows through the African American community based on the gross domestic product, the GDP. But what happens? Because we don't own anything in our own community. The money does not circulate 27 times within our community. It stays in our community for about 5 to 6 or 7 hours, and then it's back out of our community across the railroad, as they like to say, into someone else's community. And you wonder why, when they have all of these businesses that they put into the African American community, like the hair galleries, they're not owned by us. They're owned pretty much by either the Asians or the Arab brothers and sisters. You can't blame them because why? We're the only group of people who finance our own oppression. Did you hear what I just said? We are the only group of people who finance our own oppression. And so when I think about this year's presidential election, then there are so many different layers to this. So many different layers to this. And it's one of the reasons why I say I got to preface this before I even start covering some of the things I would like to touch on, that I'm apolitical. I don't know how many times I have to say that to individuals just to be transparent, as they say, to be lucid in my uh, view of how I see things. Because I've had enough of people telling me, you peeing on top of my head and you telling me that it's rain. Yes, I look around in our community and our society. I mean, have we individually isolated here or there, have had some advantages, gained some advantages, have advanced further than what our ancestors used to have? Absolutely. But when we look at it collectively as a whole, not so much. And I am about the whole and not the part, because we have to understand that here we are in 2024, gas prices are high, you got the food is high, everything is high, interest rates are high, and now they're talking about, well, can't you see some of these things slightly coming down? Yeah, but it was 3 years of it. Of course, we had the COVID. Of course, I know most of y'all are sitting there probably saying, well, Trump did this or Trump did that. Well, we had 8 years of Barack Obama. Did you get your computer, your laptop that he talked about under his administration? Did you get your computer? Because remember, he talked about that now. He campaigned on that, about how you will have money left over. Did you get your student loan dissolved? See, this is the thing. And again, I don't have a dog in the fight. See, I'm from the justly balanced community, the justly balanced community. And it's not me just saying that I'm from the justly balanced community. I'm commanded by God to understand that I'm from the justly balanced community. And what do I mean by that? Simply means that I don't lean too far left, nor do I lean too far right. No, I'm from a balanced community where I can listen from both sides of the aisle. Now, we have individuals, again, as I stated a second ago, who just automatically assume that we're supposed to connect with the Democratic Party. And of course, I was always indoctrinated with that ideology as well, growing up as a young child. Until I got older and I began to ask myself those tough questions about a lot of things that they said we should adhere to. I began to question. Yes, I began to question everything about my life and how my life has evolved. Started with a question that I needed answers to, sober minded answers, not some emotional outburst, not some spirited chant. I wanted something that was going to satisfy my mind, my intellect, as well as my soul. Yes. And that's the journey that I began to embark upon. But again, some of us just seem to think that we don't connect with the left. And just what is the left? They talk about the left is the liberals, and of course, the right side is the conservative side. Okay. But as I began to read more and more and more just about principles and more decency, and looking at America and its moral compass of how it just continues to turn and turn and turn to now you don't even know what's right side up or upside down. There was a time in this country when we knew exactly what was on the right and what was on the left. Wasn't no in between. There was no black and white. But what happened? What happened? Well, I can tell you what happened. Freedom happened. Unchecked freedom. Let me say that. Because I believe in freedom. But I don't believe in unchecked freedom. Because we have to have checks and balances, as they do in government. We have to have checks and balances, because without checks and balances, man, it's going to be like the wild, wild west. It's going to be like the wild, wild west. So we have to have checks and balances. The liberal, they want to just, everything is just this is my body. I can do what I like. This is my life. I can do what I want. I can wear what I want. I can say what I want to say. Yes, you have the freedom of speech, but you also have the freedom of responsibility that comes along with speech, because words have meaning. And if you say the wrong words to the wrong individual, wrong people, there's consequences to your actions. So we can't live in an ungoverned society. Just do whatever you want to do. And you look at the churches today, and I've seen many of these podcasts going around. These are church people now who are fighting back. They're pushing back, like the Geno Jennings. Whether if you like him or dislike him, he stands for something. He stands for something. And there are many others who are questioning and diving into the scriptures now, trying to find a better way of getting back to the basics and the fundamentals of what God wants, what God has commanded. This is the problem with too much liberalism, too many freedoms. Yeah. You know, when some people say, well, you have the free will. Yes, you have the free will. You have the free will to go and jump off a cliff, but you better not do it. You have the free will to go into a bank and rob it, but you better not do it. You have the free will to run out in front of a train, but you better not do it because there are consequences to your actions. The thing I dislike when they say that we have free will, they never include the word limited. Yes, we have limited free will. So we have to always be reminded of that. Now, this thing with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, again, I don't have a vote in it. Neither do I care to have a vote in it because I vote for me. I vote for African American people. My head, my government is right here on top of my head. This is like a dome. Just like when you look at the Capitol down in DC, the head represents the dome, the free dome, the ability to freely think for yourself, to govern for yourself. So, yes, I'm going to listen to the issues from both sides. But can you do that, Mr. Emotional Man, Miss Emotional Woman? Or are you following a tradition or a superstition? I'm just asking a question here. I mean, because can you listen to both sides of the aisle and make an informed, adequate decision based on the facts and the information and not being emotionally pulled because the media has indoctrinated you? What am I talking about that? Let me get into this real quick because I have a couple of really good friends of mine, good brothers. They mean well, but they have a hard time, you know, thinking or believing that I will have an opinion where I view Donald Trump as the best man to be in the Oval Office if I was gonna have a vote. And the thing that gets me more than anything is when I try to reason with them, is that they never look at it from the other side. I never get that. They never look at it from the other side. Because the same thing you say about Donald Trump, I can surely say about Joe Biden. I can surely say the same thing about Donald Trump. I mean, what have there been said? I mean, you know, he's a racist. That's one of the number one. That's the number one thing that comes out. Well, unless you've been crawling under a rock somewhere, Joe Biden was the biggest racist. Give you a little bit of history. You know, his mentor, I think it was he was a senator by the name of Robert Byrd out of Mississippi. This was back in the 60s. And they worked together. He mentored him. This is all on record. He even spoke at his he eulogized him when Robert Byrd passed away. And he had very harsh things to say about African American people. And he still have harsh things to say about African American people. And if you don't believe me, then let's just take a look at some of the things that Joe Biden have said throughout the years.
Alongside segregationist senators in the past. Biden recalling his early Senate career, bringing up two segregationist senators, Herman Talmadge and James Eastland, who called African Americans an inferior race. I was in a caucus with James O. Eastland, Biden said. He never called me boy, he always called me son. At least there was some civility. We got things done. We didn't agree on much of anything. We got things done.
I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind about
You still don't think he's racist? You still don't think Joe Biden don't have a racist bone in his body? Why? Because Barack Obama said so? Because Barack Obama chose him to run as his vice president, his partner? Well, let's see. We can get into some more of this of what Joe Biden. I'm just only doing a contrast. I'm just showing you Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Got hairy legs that turn that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap.
Wow. So he learned about roaches and learned about kids jumping up on his lap. And he said this in front of a group of young black boys and girls. Now here's another one. Let's see.
Right, sort of mainstream African American, who is articulate and bright and clean, nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Now that clip right there was when he was actually elected to run with Barack Obama, and he was talking about, here's a guy that's articulate, he's clean. You know, I just can't imagine if this was the words of Donald Trump, blacks would be losing their mind. Would be losing their minds. And this is what I really cannot get, because when you look at the history of what Donald Trump has done for African American people versus to what Joe Biden has done, I don't think you can compare the two. I really don't think you can compare the two. Simply because I look at Donald Trump's track record. Prior to him ever even running for president, let's get this understood, he was never known as a racist. This is what's mind-boggling to me. Prior to him ever running for president, he was never known as a racist. And if you cannot agree with that, then I would ask kindly that you go and check the archives. They used to put him in rap videos. So all of a sudden now he's a racist, when he has given more money to the HBCUs than any other president. Yes, in case you all didn't know that. He's giving more money to the HBCUs than the 8 years of Barack Obama when he was in office. Donald Trump also signed off on the First Step Act, which freed a lot of African American males and females in the federal prison systems. You talk about Barack Obama had an African American attorney general by the name of Eric Holder. And for those of you all who make the argument that, you know, well, they didn't work with him and this, that, and another, I'm simply saying, as a president, all you had to do is bring back do an executive order to bring back federal parole. All those brothers who was doing time based off of the Senate bill in 1994, which was authored and sponsored by Joe Biden as the Senate Judiciary chairman, who actually called African American brothers at that time super predators. And he even got him quoting from years earlier how he didn't want his children growing up in the jungle. This is all documented facts. All documented facts. And let's just take a look at one last clip between the debate, an early debate between him, Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden.
Right, sort of mainstream African American, who is articulate and bright and clean, nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
I just had to show that one more time. Here it is.
Relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. Started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy is a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
You made a reference to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
you said you're Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You said,
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm saying,
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill, which put
oh God,
tens of thousands of black men, mostly in jail.
All right, let me
you know what?
They
remember it because if you look at what's happening with the voting right now,
let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about
very, very badly.
And see, you know, that's what I'm talking about. All those brothers that was locked up in the early 90s. I had a friend of mine just got out from that bill back in 1994. I won't mention his name. Maybe we'll do a show one day. But from that bill, just got home about, 2 years? I don't even think it's been a solid 2 years from that bill. And if you knew my guy, you talking about non-violent? Come on. Always kept a smile on his face. Didn't have no violence or anything. And we're talking about countless of individuals who really got railroaded. And he sponsored, he authored, he even talked about it with using all type of epithets and so forth. You know, he was really forceful about this bill that locked up a lot of African-American people. So when the first step came around, it should have never came across Donald Trump's desk. It should have never got to Donald Trump's desk. Barack Obama should have took care of that. He supported the gay community, but he couldn't support fathers who was taken away from their children, only to return to see when they left, their child was like 5 years old, they getting back and their child is 25 and 30 years old. So if we remove our emotions from this and just look at the facts, look at the information, because as I told one of my friends, I said, it's amazing how this government can send you all around the world, have you jump out of helicopters and everything else, and you won't even jump from the top of the roof of your house. But when the man asks you to do it, you have no problem in doing it. And you talk about the South, we understand people are always switching parties. We get that because Donald Trump was once a Democrat himself. They switching parties back and forth. But the South, the history of the South is what led to the Civil War in and of itself. And the case law that actually allowed individuals to even vote, had to vote Republican, because there was a time when the South would not allow you to vote. There was a landmark case called United States versus Dr. L.A. Dixon. And it was done out of El Paso, Texas in 1926. That was the case law that allowed blacks to vote, period. But you had to vote for the Republican Party if you lived in the state of Texas, because the South, Texas was a slave state. So there's a lot of things to get into here. And again, I'm gonna say this as clearly as I can, because as I said this before, and when I said this, one of my very good friends took it in a different direction, that it was not intended. When people come to me and say, Jabril, how can you make these statements and it's mind blowing to me and this, that, another? And I reply and say, first and foremost, my name was legally changed, in case you all didn't know that, through a petition through the courts in 1995, November the 16th, 1995. I legally changed my name. Doesn't make me better. It just makes me more conscious, more awareness to be able to defend my position. I think when you reach a certain consciousness, a certain spiritual consciousness as well, then you come out of certain names. The names that my ancestor wore, the names that my ancestors had when they came across the Atlantic slave ships. Yes, I'm very fully aware of what I'm saying, and I have the capacity and the history and the knowledge to stand on what I'm saying. Because again, I self-govern. I respect the laws of the land as you're supposed to do wherever you are, not just in the United States. If you went to London, you got to respect the laws over there. If you went to Kenya, you have to respect the laws over there. I respect every law because we need laws. I'm not against law. I'm just against the abuse of law. Those who mismanage law, those who disproportionately apply these laws to certain groups of people for their own selfish gain. That's what I'm against. And again, I just showed you clip after clip after clip that the same things that you say about Donald Trump, I can say about Joe Biden, or the same things you say about Joe Biden, I could say about Donald Trump. And if someone going to attach their wagon to Donald Trump, like some of those racist groups out there, is that truly his fault? That's no different when you see the LGBTQ community attaching their wagon to the civil rights movement of African American people. See, because I didn't have a choice of the matter when it came to skin color. God made me. God is the best color. He colored me brown. He gives the color. God did that. But when you talking about the ability to choose, if I want to sleep with a man or a woman, and God has already set the balance in that, He's made male for female. That's an individual choice that you should know better. So again, I can't let people hook up their wagon to the civil rights movement when it had nothing to do with your sexual preference. This is my point that I'm making. So those white supremacy groups out there that want to hook their wagon up to Donald Trump because Donald Trump is recognizing certain things going on in America. This America is a loose society. People coming across the border, they're not doing it the right way like many other people have done. You come across the border, you check in. You want to be naturalized as a citizen, go through the proper channels. It's as simple as that. You talk about, because every president sits in the Oval Office, I always say it's nothing but a CEO. That's all you are. You're a CEO running a corporation because the United States, America is a corporation. It was incorporated in 1871. So you running in the seat of that office like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And the first thing they have to do is make sure the economy is running correctly. Contrary to popular belief or demand, that's what they're doing. That's their first rule of thought, making sure that this economy is running the way it's supposed to do regarding the goods and services, and that they protect that Constitution, which is really nothing but a social compact, an agreement between the United States and England. Read your history, fact check. They got to make sure that they are repaying the debt, as they say. They have to repay the debt. The debt has to be paid. That national debt that we are taxed throughout the years, it has to be paid down, not paid off. And that's another story altogether. It has to be paid down, not off. They can never pay it off. Imagine if your four tires on your car was flattened, all flattened, and you had no spare. How can you move? How can you be mobile? How can you drive down the street? You can't. So how can the economy move if the debt is paid off? No, you have to have banking cartels to create loan or manufacture loans. It's called fractional lending, so they can continue to move the government forward. But they'll never pay off the national debt. They can only pay it down. Word to the wise. Word to the wise. So in my final conclusion here, guys, I had a question I wanted to ask. And I think it's a fair question because I asked this question also, and we was talking about this. I think it's very important because this is an election year that I do think that there's going to be a lot of African Americans who are going to vote either for Trump or they're not going to vote at all. And if you don't believe me, just check this out.
Presidential race in 2024. Johnny Daniel has been shaping up heads for more than a decade at Supreme's Barbershop in the heart of Henry County, Georgia.
It was mostly Republican, and then I think when Obama came in, it started to shift.
Which swung by more than 16 points for President Biden in 2020.
I want to thank you, the people of Georgia.
Stolen votes.
And help Democrats flip the peach state for the first time in nearly 30 years. And why did you vote for President Biden in the last
Because of who he ran with, and he was in the White House for the 8 previous years. I felt like he had the experience, but definitively right now, I couldn't tell you that if they open the polls tomorrow, I'm voting for Joe Biden.
So what changed?
Life. The inflation and the things that we're going through right now. I want the right person so that I'm not paying $8 for eggs, $15 for gas.
Even though things may be improving economically, but you feel there's a disconnect.
Yeah, there is a disconnect. But the way these last 3 or 4 years have been, this is the worst it's ever been in my life. I never would have even considered thinking about voting for Donald Trump. But living in America these last 4, it's a consideration.
Well, there you have it. I mean, you're going to have some individuals who will be voting for Donald Trump. And you're going to have some individuals who may not even vote at all. I'm not here to say what to do. It's your life. Just be reminded that you are the president of your own household. Make the best decision or the best choices for you and your family. My only duty to discharge my duty is to show the contrast when you're talking about one individual and you don't look at the other individual. You don't look at the other individual. And I'm saying, me personally, come away from the whole dang thing. Yeah, because I think it's insanity now. We are still in the same condition that we was, probably even worse. If you line it up with the moral issues and everything else of what we had to go through, I just think we should just self-govern. I think we need to respect the laws of the land. I think we need to build generational wealth by spending our money in our own community and letting it stay in our community for at least 2 or 3 months, as opposed to 2 or 3 hours. That's what I do believe. But I understand some of you just can't get out of the Crayola mentality. Some of you just can't put down the crayons and get out of the Crayola box and get away from the racist aspect of it and look at this thing with a sober mind and rationale. So therefore, I asked this question. I asked this question because when I asked this question before, previously, one of my colleagues, my good friends, he said that African Americans, I'm gonna tell you what the question was. The question was, can blacks be racist? And he stated that no, blacks cannot be racist. Okay. But we're going to transition from the Trump's arises and the sniper falls, because we understand that sniper, he got killed, got his whole head blown off like a watermelon and can't even see the rest of his life. But we want to ask this question, though, before we close out this on this particular fast news episode of the culture, the replay here. Can black people be racist? Well, that depends on how you define racism. If you define racism as another human being hating another human being, then yes, African Americans can be racist. If you define racism as the belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences are produced as a superiority over another race of people, then absolutely yes. You can just study the Nation of Islam for that. There's a documentary they put on PBS years ago that was titled The Hate That Hate Produced. So yes. But however, if you're defining racism as a system of group privilege by those who have a disproportionate share of society's privileges or power or property or even economic, where there's no economic disparity, if you define it that way, then no, African American people cannot be racist in that aspect. They can't be, because collectively, blacks are neither by primary creators nor beneficiaries of the racist views that are often given within the American system. So in other words, we didn't create the system or this top of the food chain that caused African Americans to relegate themselves to an inferior position. So from a system perspective, we cannot be racist. But yeah, depending on how you define it, if it has to do with racism, hating another person, yes, absolutely we can be racist, as I stated earlier. But it's not in our makeup necessarily or in our spiritual disposition to be racist. Okay, again, we didn't create the system. So that's something I want to touch on. I may even do a whole entire show in regards to that later on, but I want to jump on here real quick. And also, like I said, I want to get us to start thinking about what's to come, because there's a lot that's about to come. I think this attempt on Donald Trump's life is definitely more deeper than they're letting off. But we've seen this story before play out in the history of America. Don't get fooled. Don't get tripped up. Don't lose your consciousness. Stay focused in this race, because I'm telling you guys, there's a lot that's about to come in the future. There's a lot that's about to come in the future. So stay prayed up, and I always keep God first. I want to thank you all again for coming on with me on this short, the replay, the Cultural Fast News edition, one mic. We try to do this shorter than what we do on the show. Again, we'll be back on here Tuesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Central Time for the Replay Sports Culture Show with my co-hosts, Daryl Alexander and Tim Jackson. So again, peace out, one love, and we'll get back at you in a minute. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and share.